That was the call yesterday on CBS as the Titans fall 36-13 to the New England Patriots. JMart and Ramon, powered by all four seasons here on 104.5 The Zone. Jonathan Schaefer, our producer. Will Boling back with you alongside Ramon Foster. Pleased to be joined on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline by that man right there, Ian Eagle from CBS, on the call on yesterday's game for the Titans. Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to talk to you. Appreciate the time this morning. And I'll tell you what, I don't think I've ever seen the Titans make 13 roster moves on one day leading up to a game. How much of a frenzy were you and Charles Davis in trying to keep all these moves together going into Sunday?
Yeah, there was a text chain that was highly active from Tuesday through Sunday with all of us participating. I think what's happened in the NFL, just based on a few things, the way that the injured reserve list works now, that you can do a short-term injured reserve, so you have players that do shuffle in and out. Injuries like A.J. Brown's in past years, I'm not sure the Titans would have put him on injured reserve. They just would have waited it out. But because you have a little more flexibility, you're going to see guys in the lineup, out of the lineup, on the 53, outside the 53. And then with the COVID protocols last year, we've seen this very large scale of practice squad guys that get an opportunity one game, and then you may not hear from them again for the rest of the season. So it's definitely keeping play-by-play guys on their toes and analysts as well. For Tennessee, it's obvious. The numbers speak for themselves. You know it. You live it on an everyday basis. They're just missing so many big names, and they just didn't have enough horses yesterday to go into New England and pull off an upset like that.
Well, and Ian, too, I think if you had told me before the game the Titans were going to run for 270 yards against the New England Patriots, that would have been their formula to win this game, right? Without Derrick Henry, they had to muster something in the run game. They finally did that. How surprised were you that they maybe didn't use more of the play action, didn't kind of play off of that run game as much in the second half? Because down 3 at halftime, down 2-0 in the turnover battle, you felt at half like this team maybe had a shot to pull off the unthinkable in this game.
Yeah, no doubt. I think a couple things happened. One, as you alluded to, they never really got anything going in the passing game and the play action game in particular, and Tannehill's numbers show that. I don't know if it's just a matter of them understanding the personnel that they had and the limitations that they may have had at the wide receiver position and at tight end. But really, more importantly, they got very little pass rush on Mac Jones. And ultimately, although they did a tremendous job in the first half and into the third quarter against New England's run game, which is really good, it did wear them out. Eventually, Stevenson got his yards, Harris got his yards, including the rushing touchdown. And the shift that you felt late third quarter was real. And as the deficit got deeper and deeper, there was no chance this team could muster up the amount of offense and the quick strikes that they needed against New England. Look, Tennessee has respect around the league for how hard they play, for how the coaches get their guys prepared for each and every game. The disappointment of the Jet game is still real. The disappointment of the Houston game is still real. Those are games that should have been in the win column, but they're not. And you got to deal with it. The best thing going right now for Tennessee is that they have a week to catch their breath, to try to get a little bit healthier, and to get themselves ready and prepared for the next game in a playoff mindset for Tennessee now at 8-4 after back-to-back losses. Things are really tight in the AFC, and they have a legitimate chance to be a playoff team, but those feelings of the number one seed and best team in the conference and maybe even best team in the NFL, those have faded with the injuries that we've seen.
Have Ian Eagle, CBS Sports. He called the Titans-Patriots game yesterday, and I have to ask you this. The recent history of this Titans and Patriots matchup has gone to the Titans. Vrabel is one of those guys that's gotten the best of Belichick, that's rare, okay? Especially in the mid-2000s, that's rare. So going into this game and your research of what you watched over this team, was there a feeling inside of like New England, Foxborough that, hey, the Titans could still get them?
Oh, there was concern. There's legitimate concern because of what happened the last two times these two teams met. Obviously, the playoff game, the one that's going to stick with Patriots fans forever because it ended up being Tom Brady's last game as a New England Patriot and a victory for the Tennessee Titans. It's interesting. You guys obviously see Mike's press conferences.
Yeah.
I don't know how much interaction you have with him. Mike is a really honest, direct person, and if you ask him a question and he's not in the mood to answer it, he'll just not answer or give a curt answer and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone that tried to even begin to understand the dynamic between Mike Vrabel, the New England franchise, Bill Belichick, you get thwarted because it's not an area that he really wants to discuss. Maybe years will go by, and when Mike moves on from coaching, it's something that he'll get into. Maybe he won't. Maybe it's just something he'll never really talk about. There's a lot there. Him learning about playing championship football and learning under Bill Belichick, who could be very tough on his guys. And I do think Mike's got some similarities in many ways, but then also does it in his own way.
Yeah.
I don't think he is anything close to a facsimile of Bill Belichick, but I do think he believes in the same tenets and the same philosophies of how you run a team, how you coach a team, and the standard in which you expect your guys to perform. And yes, there's always going to be a little something when these two teams play, just based on how much interaction and personal experience there is between Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel.
And just, talking about those two things where you say, Belichick has his way and Vrabel is getting his. Also, I always circle this game on this schedule for the Titans because I was like, we'll see how New England attacks this game. Yesterday, New England always allows you to do something, but take away everything else. When you looked at the stat line and saw 270 yards rushing, you had to think to yourself, because this is a Belichick way of doing things, they just wanted to see that happen themselves and cap off everything else that the Titans could do. Was that the way you saw it unfold with how this game went yesterday?
Yeah, I think that's a really good assessment. And look, the numbers do not match up with New England's numbers stopping the run this year. They've been very good in stopping the run. But I do think Bill Belichick will take the big picture approach. There's no way he goes into the game saying, we'll just allow 200 rushing yards and we'll take our chances with turnovers and what have you. But as the game plays out, they could live with it. And this team has been so good defensively in the red zone, creating opportunities. Obviously, it was a fourth down play, so either way, New England was getting the ball if they knocked the ball down or not. But what happens? McCourty tips the ball in the air and gives J.C. Jackson a gift. There's a real chemistry with this group in their secondary in particular, and the way that they've worked in concert with one another. They don't have big names necessarily littered throughout the team, although Matthew Judon is becoming a very big name in the NFL. J.C. Jackson's going to get paid like a top-flight corner. He's going to make big money, whether it's the Patriots that pay him or somebody else that pays him. We know what Devin McCourty has done forever. Kyle Van Noy continues to be an important cog. They find a guy in Kyle Duggar in the second round out of a Division II school, Lenore Ryan in Hickory, North Carolina. This guy's a big hitter. He's got great instincts. Miles Bryant could have been had by any team, an undrafted free agent out of Washington in 2020. Jalen Mills comes over from Philadelphia. The Eagles didn't need him anymore, and New England saw a role for him. So there's a common theme here. They have a knack. They have a way of finding guys that fit what they want to do. And in our chats with Bill Belichick, guys, he's not one that's just going to give you bulletin board material or give you 12 things that you can use in a broadcast.
Yeah.
But if you ask very specific questions to topics of interest to him, he will provide you detailed and well thought out, insightful answers. And one of the questions that we asked him was about this trend of finding undrafted free agent corners through the years. And his answer was excellent and not shockingly effective in that they don't judge them in a way that maybe you would typically presume off the physical part of it, off the the tangibles, so to speak. They're looking at different aspects of what guys do as communicators, what they've seen from them in intermediate passing game, which you just don't see a lot of in the college game. And it's working for them. They're pumping out really good players at that position that were not necessarily big names coming out of the collegiate level.
Ian Eagle, CBS Sports, with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Ian, you've seen Ryan Tannehill at his best. Obviously, you were there for that win over Baltimore in the divisional round a couple of years ago. You've seen some of his biggest wins as the Tennessee Titans quarterback. And aside from the supporting cast, obviously looking very different with A.J. Brown, with Julio Jones out, with different pieces in this team, with a new offensive coordinator this year. What to you looks the most different about this Ryan Tannehill compared to the one that led the Titans to a win in the playoffs at Baltimore?
Well, you're just not seeing a whole lot of the downfield passing game, and I really do think a lot of it has to do with the personnel that they currently have. The one thing they could do in past years, Tannehill was so good in play action, and because you had to respect his legs and his ability to get outside the pocket, there was often a tentativeness potentially from safeties to committing because he could get to the perimeter and turn it upfield for 15 yards. Right now, I'm not sure if safeties are respecting their deep passing game, and because of that, they've been able to really close in on the edges, and I don't think it's been available for him. A lot of those design runs have not been in there, maybe because they don't believe that they can produce successful yardage from it. What hasn't changed is his approach. He's so even keel. There really is never any panic, and the variance is not very wide for him in his emotions and how he leads the team. They have to get healthy. There's no doubt about it. I think if you asked Ryan, he would tell you he's probably got to play better, and he's got to be a little more crisp in what he's doing. But they're just not what they were based on the one injury, Derrick Henry, and then the domino effect that it's had. It's great that you could produce 200 yards rushing. It's incredible that you got two 100-yard rushers in Hilliard and Foreman, and maybe they have found a little something moving forward that they're really comfortable with those two guys. But it's not Derrick Henry, and it does change the way defenses prepare for you, and it changes the way that defenses deploy their players in the box. The commitment level that they have to make with Derrick Henry, whether he runs it or not, changes the schematics of what Tannehill is looking at downfield, and there's just no denying that the last four games, that's what we've seen.
Ian Eagle, CBS Sports, has been our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. Ian on the call yesterday for the Titans' loss to the New England Patriots. I appreciate the time as always.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Great talking to you. We'll do it again down the road.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Ian Eagle on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. I was interested to see kind of what his take on the Ryan Tannehill topic is because, Ramon, we've already had one caller asking, do the Titans draft a quarterback next year? The answer to that is still no. We've already had the crazy Ryan Tannehill isn't the guy conversation. And I think your approach is much more measured in the fact that, look, Ryan Tannehill's fine. I don't know if he can win you a Super Bowl. But that's interesting to kind of hear Ian Eagle, too, say that the difference is the vertical downfield threat. And he just has none of that right now to take the top off the defense.
The one guy he had, Marcus Johnson, went down with a hamstring. He's done for the year on IR also. And this is the approach, I would say. If you could paint the perfect scenario in which you said we need a Ryan Tannehill, to me, and there might be another game out there, but the one that pops off top to me is the Rams game.
Yeah.
Defense, really good. Guys made plays where they were necessarily needed to make them. And special teams follow up everything else with everybody else. That's not saying, again, that he's not the guy. He's the guy. You just need other parts around you to work well, too.